The knowledge which we are going to receive in these 7 days from the scriptures, based on the teachings of great teachers of spirituality like His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So these teachings definitely are very important for all of us, and that is why I congratulated all of you for taking this decision. So we will begin this session, today's session. Today we are going to discuss on the introduction on Bhagavad Gita. Actually, in these 7 days, we are going to discuss the introduction to Bhagavad Gita on day 1, which is today. We are going to discuss. Then we will discuss about our own self. Who am I? Discovering yourself. That will be on day 2. On day 3, we are going to discuss about, does God exist? Many of us definitely believe, or rather I should say all of you believe that God exists. But then how can we prove that God exists? Because there are people out there in the world who do not believe that God exists, or who ask for proof. Please prove that God exists. So we are going to discuss on that also. And on day 4, we are going to discuss that if God exists, then who is God? Especially in our country, we are confused in terms of religion. All other things are very clear to us. But when it comes to religion, we have a lot of confusions. People are confused. There are so many theories. There are so many gods. There are so many other people who claim themselves to be God. So a lot of confusion is going on. So who is God actually? That we are going to discuss on day 4. Day 5, we are going to discuss about material nature. Material nature means this world where we are staying. And then we will discuss on a very important topic called time and karma. Karma means activities. Many of you may have heard, as soon as you hear the word Bhagavad Gita, you hear one more word called Karma Yoga, isn't it? People relate Bhagavad Gita to Karma Yoga. So we are going to discuss on day 5th that what is that Karma Yoga? And it is a very, very important topic. If it is very important topic, why have we kept it on 5th day? Why not on day 1? Why not on day 2? It means all the topics are important. One topic is leading to another. So unless we go through first 4 days, we will not be able to understand the 5th day topic, which will explain to us that why do bad things happen to good people. Like we are living our life very peacefully, not disturbing anyone. We are not cheating anyone. We are very peaceful. We are a law-abiding citizen. But then something happens in our life, either legally, emotionally, financially, many ways. We are disturbed for no reason at all. Many times we lose our dear ones. Many times we lose our money. Many times we lose our position, power. Or we lose the peace of mind. There's some problem in relationship, problem in family, problem in society, and for no reason at all. So the question comes to mind, why is it happening to me? There are many reversals in life, setbacks in life. We plan certain things, but we are not able to reach up to that plan. We are not able to execute that plan. And then the mind starts asking, why? What have I done? So that will be answered on day 5th. And then day 6, we are going to discuss about different types of yoga. Now, that doesn't mean whenever the word yoga comes to our mind, the only picture that comes is somebody doing some exercises, isn't it? So when it is different kinds of yoga, that means you must be thinking maybe different poses. Okay, we will start doing so. Don't bring your yoga mat that day. We are not going to do yoga here. We are going to discuss on different kinds of yoga. The yoga which is generally taught in the world outside is just a part of the entire process of yoga called asanas. That's only one small part of the entire process. But that itself is not yoga. We are celebrating Yoga Day. Many people go out for 1 hour, thousands of people, they're doing yoga. So yes, doing asanas is a part of yogic process. But yoga just is not that. So we are going to discuss about different kinds of yoga, and in that we will also discuss about topmost yoga system. Because if you are discussing about different kinds, then there should be the topmost also. So we will discuss that on 6th day, and then 7th day we will discuss about practical application of Bhagavad Gita. Because unless Bhagavad Gita we start living, or the principles of Bhagavad Gita, unless we imbibe in our life, there is no point in understanding Bhagavad Gita or hearing about Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means we should be able to change our life. And how we can change, so we will discuss on day 7. So all these days are very important. One leads to another. The first day we are discussing importance of Bhagavad Gita, then about ourselves, that is the topic which is very relevant to us, and then God and karma, etc. So I request all of you, today anyway being the first day, we are starting a little late, but tomorrow onwards I would like to start on time because there is a lot to cover. So I would like to finish the day's portion on that day itself, and it is possible only if all of you come on time, and then we can begin. So this is how the course is structured, and today we are going to now start about Bhagavad Gita. The introduction of Bhagavad Gita. What is Bhagavad Gita? Now many of you may have heard this name Bhagavad Gita. Many of you may have taken Bhagavad Gita, kept it as it is in your house without opening it. Or many of you may have kept it in the altar next to the photo of Krishna or Rama. Or many of you may be scared to take Bhagavad Gita because there is a photo of Arjun and Krishna on the battlefield, and it is told, especially in the villages of India or even in the cities, that please don't keep that photo, otherwise Mahabharat will be there in your house. People are scared. But how can it be? If it is the picture of the Lord, definitely it will bring auspiciousness in whatever way we keep it. So now we will discuss about what is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a classic of timeless wisdom. It is coming down from ages. Please do not think that Bhagavad Gita just appeared or was spoken only around 5,000 years ago. We can say it was spoken millions of years ago also, but 5,000 years ago Krishna again spoke the same knowledge to Arjuna. So Bhagavad Gita, what we have right now, this is a conversation between Lord Krishna and his dear devotee and friend Arjuna. Just a normal conversation turned into a very deep philosophical conversation, and Lord Krishna utilized this opportunity to give to humanity a wonderful book, a wonderful scripture called Gita Upanishad. It is one of the Upanishads. It is considered as one of the Upanishad. So he gave this Gita Upanishad for all of us. So it is not just a religious book. It is a manual for our life. When you buy an electronic product or any other product, you get a manual along with that. But when you buy this product called body, do you have a manual? When you were born, were you given a manual with that? Please take this and look into it, how to operate this body. But yes, it has been given already in the form of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, it appeared at a time when the battle was about to begin. Most of you, being in India, are conversant with Mahabharata. Any of you here who have never heard the word Mahabharata? Please raise your hand. Okay. At least thanks to Doordarshan or television, everyone knows Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is a great epic. It is part of scriptures. It is, we all know that the brothers in the family, Kauravas and Pandavas, they were fighting for the land. They were not getting along. So somehow at the conclusion of Mahabharata comes from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is still there near Delhi. So battle was about to begin. Both the armies were standing facing each other. There was a huge army of Duryodhan and his team, his people. And this side, Yudhishthir, Arjun, etc., the Pandavas. And Krishna was on the Pandavas' side because they were following Dharma. The Lord always supports those who are on the right path. Sometimes we may have difficulties in following the right path, and we see that those who are following the wrong path, they are doing very good, they are getting a lot of benefit, they are becoming rich, they are becoming powerful, and we who are following the right path are not getting anything. But please understand, Lord is always with those who are on the right path. Ultimately, eventually, Lord helps them because Pandavas also had to go through such hardships in their life. It is not that Pandavas, being very close to Lord Krishna, being very great devotees of Krishna, not that they didn't have to go they didn't have to face any hardships. In fact, they faced hardships which we cannot even think of. So Pandavas faced all that, all the troubles in their life, because they knew that Lord Krishna is supporting them. They knew that if they walk on the right path, eventually they will be the winners. And this is the message of Mahabharata. Mahabharata, there is a lot of things in Mahabharata to learn. In fact, it is said, whatever you can think of is already there in Mahabharata. The politics is there in Mahabharata. Romance is there in Mahabharata. Fight is there in Mahabharata. Whatever you can think of is there in Mahabharata. But the ultimate message of Mahabharata is that in spite of having troubles in your life, in spite of facing hardships in your life, if you remain on the right path, if you keep your faith strong on the Lord, then definitely you will come out as winner, as we see in Mahabharata. So this was the time when both the armies were facing each other. Arjuna was waiting for 13 years for this moment when he can fight and kill all those who had done wrong to him, not only to him, to his family. And they were all sinful people. He was ready now And he knew because Lord Krishna is on his side, he will kill all of them by the mercy of the Lord. But at that time, when he saw all of them assembled there, who were they? They were all related to Arjuna. His brothers, his uncles, all of them were there. In fact, his Guru Dronacharya was there fighting against him. Bhishma was there. All his dear ones were there fighting, and seeing this, Arjuna couldn't control himself. He lost all his composure. He became perplexed. He forgot the purpose of life. He forgot why is he standing there as a warrior. And he told Krishna, I will not fight. And Krishna was surprised. He said, what is this? We are ready to fight. Everyone is waiting. In fact, Bhagavad Gita first chapter says that conch shells also had been blown. That means they were just ready to begin. And Arjuna said, I will not fight. Krishna said, why? He said, why should I kill people? Why should I kill my own men? Why should I kill my relatives, my guru? Just for piece of land? I don't want such land. I'll become a beggar. But I will not kill them. Such a good quality in Arjuna. Saintly qualities of Arjuna. How many of us can do that? We know that we just have to kill them and then we will become the king of entire planet Earth. Not just small country called Bharat. That time they were ruling the entire planet Earth. But Arjuna had these saintly qualities and he said, I will not fight. That is the time when Krishna gave the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Just 700 verses in Bhagavad Gita. This forms, it's a part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata has lot of parvas. And one of the parva is called Bhishma Parva. So Bhagavad Gita is part of that. 18 chapters. And in just these 18 chapters, Krishna gave entire knowledge of spiritual and material world. Everything what is needed for us to know, to live a peaceful life is given in Bhagavad Gita. So this is Bhagavad Gita which we have with us, conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. Many of the people, like when we talk about Bhagavad Gita, so let's see, there are certain people who are famous and what do they say about Bhagavad Gita? Mahatma Gandhi, of course, can somebody read it? Do we have a mic, separate mic? Can somebody read it?
When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, when I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to the Gita, and I find myself smiling amidst overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh meanings and joy from it every day.
Yeah, so Mahatma Gandhi, he glorified Bhagavad Gita. And also very famous scientist Albert Einstein, he also, can someone else read it?
When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous.
So person like Albert Einstein also was reading Bhagavad Gita. It is not that Bhagavad Gita is meant only for what they say Hindus, right? It is only for Hindus. No, Bhagavad Gita is for everyone. Bhagavad Gita has principles which are applicable to everyone. Universal laws. Like law of gravity. Law of gravity is applicable to everyone, right? It is not that the Hindus are walking on the earth and Muslims are flying in the air because gravitational force doesn't affect them. Gravitational force is a universal law which is applicable to everyone. So such laws are given in Bhagavad Gita which are universal. The example I have given is of gravitational force. So this gravitational force is universal law. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita gives us universal laws. So that is why it is applicable to anyone. Some more examples are here. This is a famous American philosopher who says that Bhagavad Gita is is an empire of thoughts in itself, its philosophical teachings. Krishna has all the attributes of the full-fledged monotheistic deity, and at the same time the attributes of the Upanishad absolutely. So you see, many of them, there is a Nobel Prize winner who won the Nobel Prize in 1952, he also glorifies Bhagavad Gita. Now when we talk of Bhagavad Gita, we should also know, before we begin the study of Bhagavad Gita, what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? Because when we study something or when we are trying to do something, if we know the purpose, it becomes attractive for us. It becomes meaningful for us. When you start doing a business, if it is told to you that please do this business and we promise that you will earn in 1 year, you will earn so much money, then definitely you like to do it, isn't it? Or like suppose a company comes out with a public issue, a new company, and they advertise that please buy our shares for 10 rupees, and then they project that within maybe 3 years the price will go up to 200 rupees. So you are inspired to buy, isn't it? Suppose a company comes and advertises, okay, we are coming out with a public issue, buy our shares, and we guarantee that in 10 years we will close down the factory. We'll close down the company. Company will be at loss completely. Will you put your money? All of you, will you put or no? Okay, when you got this company called body, right? Wasn't it told that one day it will be closed? Isn't it? One day we are all going to die. And the only thing you have to do throughout the life, as long as this company is there, is keep investing. Isn't it? And one day we will close it. But we still put all our money in this company called body. But anyway, I was saying that if we know the advantages or the purpose, we feel inspired. Similarly, before we begin the study or before we understand Bhagavad Gita in detail, we should know the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. So what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? The first purpose is to save humanity from ignorance. Ignorance means when we are staying in this world, all of us, we are in ignorance of many things. Like when you look up to the sky, you see stars. Do you know what are those stars? Do you know what's happening out there? Do you know what is happening in the world? What is happening in the cosmos, universe we are seeing? We don't know anything. It's only speculation going on with some people. So as soon as we look at it, we get in our mind we get an inquiry, a question comes. What is it actually? How will it be when I go there? Or if I go there? I remember when I was a child, from my childhood I always thought that one day I will go to the stars. Because when I was a child and anybody died in family or nearby, we were told, wo upar chale gaye, wo Bhagwan ke paas chale gaye. So I always thought Bhagwan is there, right? He is on top. When the first person went to the space, who was it? The first one to? Oh, Neil Armstrong, yes. And Neil Armstrong went to the space or he went to the moon? I'm asking about space. No. It was Gary, I think. Anyway, whoever it was, my knowledge is not so good. Yuri Gagarin, yes. Thank you, Yuri. So when he went, He came back and he was speaking to some children in the school. And one of the children asked, "You went up in the space, did you see God?" Which is a very relevant question, right? Because from our childhood we have been hearing, Bhagwan upar hai, wo upar chale gaye. When somebody dies, we say upar hai. So they asked him, "Did you see God?" And he said, "No, there is no God there." So all the children were very disturbed. So one of them, he went home and he was really disturbed, and so his grandfather was there and he looked at him. He said, "What happened?" He said, "I was thinking God is there, but today I realize God is not there." He said, "Why? What happened?" So he said, "Such a such person, he went into space, and I asked him, 'Did you see God?' He said, 'No, I didn't.' So there's no God." So the grandfather said, when this person staying on this earth, he could not see God, how is it possible that he will go in the space and see? First we should learn how to see God here, and then when we go to the space we can see God there. He has not learnt how to see God. So removing ignorance means, like many times we say, "Show us God." If you remove this ignorance from your consciousness, from your mind, you'll be able to see God. It is not very difficult. Please understand. Don't think that nobody can see God. I remember when I had just begun practicing this process. So I met one person and he said, "Why are you practicing this?" I said, "Because I want to see God." I told him that. So he said, "But no one can see God." I said, "Why?" I was very new, so I didn't know much. I had just started practicing, but I was determined. I said, "I want to see God." And he said, "No, no one can see God." I said, "Why?" He said, No one has seen God." I said, "No, there are in the histories, in the Puranas, there's so many things, Narad can talk to God. We have been hearing. So why you say that no one? He said, No. When these people, they talk to God, there is a curtain. So I said, "What curtain?" He said, "There is a curtain because they only hear, they cannot see." His meaning was that actually God doesn't have a form. So you cannot see. What you can see, only you can hear, that's all. So I told him that if God doesn't have a form, how does he speak? To speak you need a mouth. He said, "No, we need a mouth. He doesn't need a mouth. He can speak, he can walk without body, anything." So I said, "Very nice. I understand that God can do anything. But do you think if God can do anything, he cannot have a body also?" So he said, "He can have, but he doesn't want." I said, "Why?" It's just arguments. So ignorance means we do not know who we are. This is the first ignorance we have in our life. We are trying to learn about machines, about automobiles, about aeroplane, about train, so many machines, but we do not know how this machine is functioning. We have a machine, we have a body. So we are ignorant of our own self. Isn't it? Like Prabhupada, one time our founder Acharya, one time he was giving a lecture. And then he asked one boy, "Please stand up." And he said, "Can you point to your hand?" He said, "Yes, this is my hand." He said, "Can you point to your head?" He said, "Yes, this is my head." He said, "Can you point to your legs?" He said, "Yes, these are my legs." He said, "Can you point to yourself? Point you." And the boy was confused. Where will he point? Right? So Prabhupada explained that when you say something is mine, like if I say this is mine, so that means I am different from this. Isn't it? Very simple thing. So Prabhupada explained that when you say this is my hand, this is my leg, this is my head, this is my body, that means we are something different from this body. This is your body, but who are you? The ignorance of the self is the first ignorance we have in this life, in our life, isn't it? We do not know who we are. We do not know why are we suffering. That is the second question. We make so many inquiries in our life. Like when you take the newspaper in the morning, right? You want to inquire how many people are dead, what happened to the politics, what happened to the minister, what happened to the prime minister, etc., etc., etc. So many inquiries. But do we make inquiries about asking about ourselves? Who are we? Why are we here? What is this all life about? Is this life only meant for just like what is life of an ordinary person? He takes birth, we study, we start earning after studies, you get married, you have children, your children grow, and then your tensions grow along with that as your children are growing. And then children, they grow and then you become old. And then a day comes when you are about to die. And then you think, oh, I haven't completed my duty, I haven't done this. But anyway, the time comes and then you die. Is this our life meant for? Just for all these things. So an intelligent person should think that life must have something beyond this. And that intelligent person can come out of ignorance by the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So the first purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to save humanity from ignorance. The second purpose is to revive our relationship with God. We have, all of us, we have lost our connection with God. That is our major problem. Because as I was saying that we need to know who we are, come out of this ignorance. And then after you come out of ignorance, you need to establish your relation with God. So Bhagavad Gita helps us to revive. Why the word revive is used? Because we are not making a new connection. We already have relation with God. It is just we have to revive it. So that is why Bhagavad Gita is given to us. And why should we try to understand Bhagavad Gita? Let's try to discuss some very important things that why we need to understand Bhagavad Gita. When we look around us, we see many things. We see animals, we see birds, etc. So when we see the birds or all kinds of living beings, we try to categorize them, right? In general, if you say broad way, humans and animals, isn't it? I mean, there are various others, you can say birds, reptiles, mammals, etc. But in general, we say human and animals. We try to categorize them. So if we have more than one category, what does it indicate? When we have two categories, it indicates that there has to be something common in them and there has to be some difference. When you say category, like says for example, first class of an aeroplane and an economy class of an aeroplane, right? What is common in both? Both are plane tickets, right? So that is common. You'll go in the same plane, isn't it? But what is the difference? Yeah, in the first class you get a lot of facilities, space, etc. Economy you won't get that, isn't it? So similarly, when we say two categories, so humans and animals, we should try to see what is common and what is difference in that. So it is said that four things are common in humans and animal, which can be understood by a simple word called seed, S-E-E-D. It is just for you to remember that what are the common things in humans and animals? It is seed. So what is seed? I mean, this is given in the Shastras. This is a verse from the Shastras. Ahara nidra bhai maithunam cha samanya etat pashubhi naranam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhi samana. So the four things which are common, first is sleeping. So we are talking about seed, S-E-E-D. So first is sleeping, second is eating, third is enjoying, and fourth is defending. Ahar, Nidra, Bhay, Maithunam cha. So these four things are common to the people. So let's discuss. So when we see sleeping, right? So many times we see that animals are also sleeping and we also sleep. What is the difference? Any difference? We may sleep on Dunlop pillows or Dunlop beds and they may sleep on road. But the happiness which is derived is same. After you sleep, you don't know where you're sleeping, right? Is it that after you sleep, you still are aware that I'm not sleeping here? After the dog sleeps, it's the same, isn't it? So sleeping is very common. And of course, eating. Animal also eats and we also eat. We survive because we eat and animals survive because animals eat. And then there is enjoyment that animals also enjoy and humans also enjoy. And then defending. That we try to defend. The only difference is they have claws to defend themselves and we have an army or atomic bombs, etc. to defend ourselves. But the process is same. So these four things are considered as common. That is Ahara, Nidra, Bhay, Maithunam cha. So if everything is common, like we just said, can you tell me what could be the difference between animals? Do you think animals and humans are different? Or they are same? Pakka? Okay. So tell me some of the differences between animal and humans. Good differences. You can learn, but animals cannot learn because they don't have a school, unfortunately. Any other difference? Anything else would you like to say? Yes. They can't think. Okay, very nice. Humans can think and animal cannot think. Should I give you an example? Yes? Okay. Suppose a cat is coming to drink the milk in the house. Okay. She's entering and she sees the owner of the house standing. What will she do? Will she just walk and start drinking the milk? Why? Because what is she doing? She's thinking that I'm not supposed to go because then I'll get hit. Let the owner go, then I will go. Isn't that thinking? Okay, yes. Okay, humans have the capability to know the truth of life and animals do not have. Yes, that is one difference. Any other? Yes. Oh, we can express our feelings and animals cannot. Have you seen a cow giving birth to a calf? Have you seen any time? And the way she expresses her feeling. Of course, they don't express the way we do. Maybe we express by saying, I love you, I don't love you, I hate you, or whatever, right? And they don't say, but the expression is there. See the expression of the cow, the way she takes care of the calf. My God, I don't see that in humans also. Wherever the calf goes, the cow goes behind that, and she doesn't allow anyone to come near. Very protective. What to talk of cow? All the animals, even tigress. So they have, it's not that they cannot express their feelings, they express their feelings very nicely. Yes, any other thing? I'm sorry, I'm defeating all of you, trying to do that. Yes. Oh, humans are vertical. हाँ वो चार पाँव पे है, right? They are all on four legs and humans are on 2 legs. So he means to say that humans are 2-legged animals. Isn't it? It's the only difference that we are on 2 legs and they are on 4 legs. Otherwise, we are all same. Does that mean? Do you mean to say that? No. Okay. Yes. Okay. Humans have the capacity to know that when we die, then what will happen? How many of you know? That's correct. Actually, your answer is correct. I'm just asking. How many of us know? That is why we are here to learn Bhagavad Gita, right? So Bhagavad Gita will teach us. She said capacity. It's not that she said we know. We have the capacity. Yes, we have the capacity. Unfortunately, we don't utilize that capacity. We utilize that capacity for all other things, to know how to earn money, to know how to cheat others, to know how to defeat others, but not to know what will happen to us after death, right? Thank you. Any other thing? Bahut acha, very nice. Good, all your answers are good. Thinking power. Oh, yes. Oh, animals cannot talk like us. Yes, very nice. But they have their own language, right? In the morning, you see the birds, they start chirping. They come out, kit, 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 right? They're talking amongst themselves. And even other animals, they may not talk like us because we are sophisticated animals. So we talk in a sophisticated way and they are just talking, but very nice. Good. Yes. Sorry, he's speaking. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Animals cannot invent the things the way we can. Have you seen a bird making a nest hanging upside down? Such beautiful architecture. Without going to the college, without going anywhere, right? And they don't have a technology. In fact, they don't have machines. And with just by their beaks, they bring and they make so nice inventions. In fact, I'm sorry, but in fact, humans are learning from birds nowadays. The scientists are studying the flight of an owl. You know owl? Ulu? So it flies without making sound. When the owl flies, it doesn't make any sound. So scientists are now studying the flight, how it flies, so then they can make a plane which doesn't make a sound. Because nowadays the plane, like supersonic jets we have, but they make so much sound. So they are learning from them in so many other ways. They are learning from them. So inventions, in fact, humans are learning from animals. And animals are doing better than us. Yes, but good. I mean, what you mean to say is that they cannot make something new. Whichever is going on is going. But we are making new things. Yes, that is correct. They cannot make vehicles, right? We have made vehicles. They cannot make planes. We have made planes. Actually, they don't need planes. It's only we need planes. Isn't it? See, in God's creation, we make planes for which we need fuel, for which if anything happens to that, crores of money is gone. But see God's creation. He has hundreds and thousands of planes flying in the form of mosquitoes. Isn't it? They don't clash with each other. And when they need the fuel, they come to us. Take the fuel and go back. Isn't it? Such nice arrangement of God. Okay, so of course all of you, what you were saying were quite good. So the difference between humans and animals, as you all were saying, maybe reasoning, questioning, thinking, logical intelligence. So sometimes we can think, yes, they don't have this. They may have the thinking power, they may not have the reasoning power. We have the reasoning power, we have the questioning power. They don't question. They do have all these powers, but they use their power, their ability only for 4 things. So it is like I gave you example of the cat. So cat uses the thinking power only for sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending, not for any other purpose. So the difference between us and animals is that they also have reasoning power, they have thinking power, they are doing everything, but all their activities are centered around sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending. That's all. Nothing beyond that. Like we cannot advertise and call all the animals for a Bhagavad Gita course. Isn't it? How many will come? Have you seen a pig anytime? Right? So when you see a pig, what is he doing? Pig is always looking for food. I have never seen his head up. always looking for food. Where will I get food? And you know what is the food for the pig? I'm not going to discuss because you're going to take prasad after that. But have you seen a pig any time standing on the road with his head high, looking up in the sky and thinking, what is the purpose of my life? Anytime? So they have all the ability to find their food. They are very intelligent. To protect their children, they are very intelligent. To make their houses, they are very intelligent. Even staying in the jungle, they are very intelligent. But all their intelligence is used only for sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending. Seed. That's all. But as humans, we are not supposed to do that. We have the ability, as was mentioned by someone, ability for higher inquiry. So we also inquire, and most of the time we also inquire for sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending. But we have the ability to inquire for higher purposes. So our life is meant for higher inquiry. Now, I'll just explain to you that if we don't do the higher inquiry, what happens? Now, human life, we can have two things, whether proper inquiry or no inquiry. For the higher purpose I'm talking of, for the higher purpose. What is the higher purpose? What are the higher purpose of human life? Any of you, can you share? Any of you would like to say? What are the higher, what do you can think of higher purpose in human life? Yes. Eternal life. Okay, very nice, wonderful. Any other answer? Yes. Stopping, yeah. Relief from suffering or stopping the suffering. Yes. Achieving blissful life. Very nice, wonderful. Good. These are the higher inquiry. Any other? Any other person would like to share? Yes, Matij. Spirituality, yes, thank you. Because we are spiritual. Spirituality, yes, any. Ecstasy, yes, very nice. This side is silent. What is happening? All the answers are coming from here. The sound doesn't go this side. What are the higher inquiries you can think of? I'm not asking what are actual. You can think of something higher. What do you think higher in your life? I'm not telling that higher means go on the 100th floor building or something. I'm saying what are the higher purpose? What do you think human life is meant for? Any higher purpose you can think of? Sorry? Higher recognition. Okay, yes. Self-realization. Very nice. Sorry? Being peaceful. Very nice. Blissful or peaceful. Yes. Appearance. Happiness. Okay. Yes. Happiness. We should be happy. All of us want to be happy, right? Anytime you come to the temple and then have you ever seen a person coming to the temple standing in front of the Lord and saying, last week I was really, really happy, but please, please make me miserable this week. Do we ask like that? We always want to be happy, isn't it? So yes, so some of the higher purposes which all of you said, being happy and trying to, for self-realization, eternal life, spiritual life. So these are higher inquiries. If you do not inquire for the higher purposes, so first is we can either inquire or we don't inquire. If we don't inquire, what happens? We go back to animal life. We are going to discuss this on 4th day. What is the meaning of going back to animal life? In brief, I will tell you that there is an evolution, natural evolution, not the evolution mentioned by Mr. Darwin, but evolution. And that natural evolution brings us from various species to the higher species called humans. And if we do not inquire for the higher purpose, then we go down to animal life. And if we have inquiry for the higher purpose, then we are promoted to higher life. So as humans, we have a choice. Whether we inquire for higher purpose or we don't, most of the time we see others, how they are living, and we follow. Right? Suppose one person becomes very successful in one business, and you will see hundreds of them doing the same business, isn't it? Like internet, or I remember earlier there used to be PCOs, STD booth, when we didn't have mobiles at that time. And so one person opened and he's, then you'll see 10. Same thing, absolutely same thing, right? So what we do is that we inquire because we want to do all these things. We want to be just happy here. So we go on inquiring, but our inquiry is not for the higher purpose. And that is why we are most of the time frustrated. So if you have for the higher purpose, then we go for a higher life. So I'm sorry to say this, but if we don't explore this potential that we are simply well-dressed, sophisticated, polished, two-legged animals, if you don't make any higher inquiry. Because if we are also just living for the same purpose, sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending, then what is the point? Then we are as good as animals. Only thing is we wear tie, suit, so we are just polished two-legged animals, isn't it? How many of you want to be like that? Polished, sophisticated, two-legged animals. Any of you? Then we must inquire for the higher thing. We shouldn't remain in what is the seed? First one? In defending. This is for animals, isn't it? We should go for higher purposes. In fact, sometimes man becomes worse than animals. You know why? Like in following this sleeping, eating, man becomes worse. You know the reason? Human beings, they become more miserable than animals. I'll tell you the reason. Because they don't experience all this, or they don't have to take all this or go through all this. What all this? Number one, sleeping pills. I am sure animals do not take sleeping pills, or maybe they are taking in their own way, right? So, but humans, we have to take, right? We don't get sleep and then you have to go and take sleeping pills. They are always threatened. There is a scarcity, right? Have you ever heard that an animal in the forest died of hunger? They don't die, generally, unless humans create some trouble in the forest. Enough for them. There is no scarcity. Scarcity is only for humans. Why is it there? Because suppose you keep a bag of grain right in the middle of the road. The birds will come, whatever they want, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 grains, they will just take that much and go away. Or any other animal will come. But human will come. He requires only 100 grams to eat, but he will carry the entire bag, isn't it? So, scarcity is there. And of course, heartbreaks. I don't know whether animals have heartbreaks or not. I've never heard of it, right? I've never seen an animal crying. I lost my girlfriend or not girlfriend, whatever, right? They may not have heartbreaks, isn't it? Stress management courses, I'm sure we are not giving to animals, but we are giving to humans, right? And we have to give a lot of stress, especially in corporates when we go. The first thing they say, can you speak on stress management? There's so much stress for them. Earning money is not easy. So they have to take so much stress. So all these things they have to go through. Then addictions, of course, and ultimately suicide. Addictions also, I don't know whether animals have it. Have you anytime you've seen some monkey with a bottle or something going around? I mean, at least I have not seen, right? Addictions are for humans. And suicide. When we get frustrated completely, when all our efforts, which we try to become happy, Because all of us are looking for happiness. And when we are frustrated, when we see that there is no possibility, ultimately person goes to such an extent of committing suicide. It's killing own self. So these all things, that's why I said that man becomes worse. Actually, if you compare human life with animal life, with a simple example here we can see with a tractor and a Mercedes car. So human body is like Mercedes car and tractor, animal body is like tractor. So both are vehicles. So both are vehicles, but what is the difference between the two? What is the difference between a tractor and a Mercedes car? Higher pleasures or higher comfort, right? Mercedes has good comfort. You don't, I mean, if you're sitting in a tractor and going on a highway, you don't feel very comfortable, right? But when you're on a Mercedes, you don't even feel that you're going at a speed of 120 or 140 or even 200. So human life is meant for higher pleasure. Now you see, when we're talking about higher inquiry, it doesn't mean that one has to give up all his pleasure. Please understand. As soon as we hear the word spiritual life, religious life, the one thing that comes to our mind is, I will have to give up all my pleasures, right? Because I have seen those who are following spiritual life, they don't do this, they don't do that, so better not to do. No. Human life is meant for higher pleasures, not the lower kind of pleasures which animals are enjoying, because we have the higher facilities. Now, although human life is meant for higher pleasures, but we are always suffering. Always. Some or other problem. In this world, we call ourselves happy only when there is no problem, no misery. Absence of misery is considered as happiness in this world, right? One misery has gone, another is about to come. The gap between the two is considered as happiness. एक दुख चला गया, दूसरा आने वाला है, हम लोग इंतजार कर रहे हैं, उतने में वही खुशी है, दुख नहीं. Absence of misery is considered as happiness. So we should understand that there are certain problems in our life. The real problem of our life is not that how much money we have, is not that what has happened to our relationship, not heartbreaks. The real problems has some definition. Real problem can be classified as a real problem. Number one, if it is common to all. Poverty is not common to all. Poverty is not a problem for rich people, isn't it? How can it be a real problem? So real problem means it should be common to all. No one wants it and no one can avoid it. This is called real problem. No one, common to all, no one wants it and no one can avoid it. If this is there, then it is considered as real problem. So we have a lot of problems in this world. Are they real or not? How will we know? If they are common to all and no one wants it and no one can avoid it. Can you tell me some of the real problem or some of the problems facing this world? Earthquake, yes. Is it common to all? Common to all. No one wants it and nobody can avoid it. Very nice. So one thing is okay. Any other? Global warming, yes. Okay, you're talking about real problems. Just talk about normal problems also. Disease. Yes. And what are the other problems in life? Do you have any problems or you don't have any problems? Many people have a lot of problems. I see on Mondays, there is a long queue in Shivji's temple, Lord Shiva's temple, right? People go there to ask Shiva. Only on Monday, I don't know why other days he's sleeping or what is it, I don't know. Why they don't go on other days. But Monday especially, there's a long queue. People will go and everyone wants to ask something, right? Something or other in the mind they have. That is why they go, आज तो Monday है, आज पूरा हो जाएगा. So we go because we don't want miseries. So we have problems. But the real problem is, as I said, should be common to all. The example given was very good, earthquake, which no one wants it and no one can avoid it. So now let's try to understand what are the real problems that we go through in life, which are common to all, no one wants it and no one can avoid it. The first one is birth, right? Birth is a real problem. We celebrate that problem, right? When somebody is born, then we celebrate. But actually just imagine the child which is in the womb for 9 months suffering, drinking its own urine, just in that bag of urine, suffering for 9 months. And in fact, the scripture says that the child inside the womb of the mother cries, prays to the Lord, please take me out from here. I promise I will never come back again. So, birth is a real problem. So, such a suffering, painful thing. That is why child cries, right? The moment child is born, he cries. All of us must have cried, I'm sure. I don't remember, but I'm sure, right? The child has to cry. If he doesn't cry, then they start slapping the child. Isn't it? If the child is not crying, they slap the child. And when child starts crying, everyone is happy. Welcome to the material world, right? Now you're okay. So from the beginning, we are taught to cry, isn't it? So birth is a problem. The second is old age. Old age is a problem or not a problem? Common to all, right? No one wants it. How many, we have some old people here, I would like to ask them, are you happy being old? No. Oh yes, I was waiting for this, right? Do we all say like that? In fact, when we are in young age, we don't want to become old. Even if we become old, we don't want to accept that we are old till somebody starts calling us uncle or something like that, right? Otherwise, we think that I'm Shah Rukh Khan or oh, he's also old. I mean, whoever. Isn't it? We don't consider ourselves old, and then we have all that makeup and all those things, and the whole cosmetic industry is working just because we don't want to look old. Isn't it? I think the maximum business is being done by cosmetic industries, right? We have advertisements that become young again in 6 weeks, and then fair and lovely, and then fair and handsome, and I don't know how many, right? I know only few which have been told to me, but I don't know how many are going on. So cosmetic industries and like facelifting, so plastic surgery, right? Any other thing to become young again? It's like, building is old, but you're just putting a new paint. Is it going to save the building? Nothing like that. Like, I always give this story, I like it very much. There was a lady, old lady, around 55, 60-year-old. She was hospitalized. She was in ICU about to die, and she saw God. And she asked God, am I going to die? So God said, no, you have 40 more years to live. She said, 40 years? He said, yes. And surprisingly, she was all right. She came out of the ICU. So then she remembered that God said that 40 years are there. Now she was about 55 something, 54, 55. So she thought, no, I have to live for 40 years. Why should I live like an old lady? So let me do something. So she went for plastic surgery. She went for, changed her hairstyle, changed everything, color of the hair. And I don't know what all she did because, I can't think of anything. I've not been hearing all that. But whatever can be done to look young again. And she changed her completely. She was looking young again. And then she came out of the hospital. As she was crossing the road, a truck came and truck banged the lady and she died. And when she died, she saw God again. And she asked God, you told me I have 40 years. How did I die? भगवान ने बोला पहचाना नहीं ना इतना मेकअप किया हुआ था आपने. So God said, I didn't recognize, right? So, we want to, sometimes it is dangerous not to show your old age. So people don't want to look old. I remember there was an French actress, and she was very young. And the first time her hair started turning gray, and she looked at it, she couldn't take it. And after that, she disappeared from the eyes of the world. Nobody knew where she went because she wanted her followers or her devotees, we can say, to remember her as a young actress. She didn't want anyone to see her also as old. Just see how scared we are of old age. And I'm telling you, really, old age is terrible. So many difficulties. When we are in young age, we don't realize it. Because, we are full of energy, we can do anything we want, we can jump around, we can eat anything. But once you become old, there is a list what you cannot eat. There is a list of things what you cannot do. If you sit, you cannot eat. If you cannot get up. If you get up, you cannot sit again. So many things. Old age. Miserable life, isn't it? And if you're too old, good for nothing. Even the family says just get out and just stand outside or something. If you're too old, you cannot do anything. Then it is so miserable. You're just waiting to die. Just imagine how will it be? You're very old and you're just waiting. When will I die? And you're not dying. Well, say 90-year-old, 100-year-old or something like that. And you cannot do anything. You're just lying on the bed. How miserable that life will be. And people also, I have seen many places, like, somebody is living up to 90 years, 92 years or 100 years and they're bedridden completely. And then the family member also don't take care. How long will they do? They're thinking, bas ho gaya, 100 ho gaya, abhi aur kya hai? How long you want to live? It goes on. Old age is really terrible. So that is a real problem. And then, of course, as somebody had mentioned, disease. We all have to face, right? Disease. So this is the third problem. So birth, old age, disease, and ultimately death, called Yamaraj. So we have said about the body, B-O-D-Y. So body itself is a real problem. Birth, old age, disease and Yamaraj. Yamaraj means death. That is body. And we all have to die, isn't it? Is it very painful to die? Yes or no? How do you know? Saying no, how do you know? Do you have the experience? It's very painful. Scripture says, now you'll say, how do you know it's painful? Because Scripture says that when a person is dying, it is like thousands of scorpions biting him at a time. It's very painful physically, it's very painful emotionally. Just imagine a condition. You are old, you're about to die. And you don't know what is death, right? I'm sure you don't know, right? और ऊपर से लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं? People are going, अब भगवान का नाम लो, भूल जाओ सब. And then you get, what is this going on, right? एक तो first of all, you don't know what is death. You don't know what is going to happen. Death means what? I'll be cut into pieces, I'll be burnt, or, I have heard that some ferocious people come, and what is going to happen? You are not aware. So you're scared. On top of that, people are telling, bhul jao abhi sab log, Bhagwan ka naam lo, all those things. So a person gets more scared. What is going on? So death is really a scary thing for us because we do not know what is death. We do not know what is going to happen to us. We have only heard, we have only seen people dying, but actually what happens to the person when he dies after that, we do not know. But Scripture says it's very painful. So that is why, that is also, and of course, when a person is dying, he has to leave everything. So I said physically, It is very painful. Emotionally, it is very painful. He has to leave everything, right? Like, suppose you're going for 2-3 years, or say, for example, a girl gets married, right? So in India, at least it's a tradition. Outside, they don't cry, but here in India, at least there is a tradition. So, I mean, it's a ritual, or I don't know what is a tradition. So once everything is ready, okay, now camera, action, start crying. So then it starts, right? It's a tradition. Actually, it's not a tradition because she's going away. That attachment to the family was there. So now she's going away. Obviously, she'll cry. And but she's just going to another city, maybe. Still, she cries. Here, a person is dying. He doesn't know where is he going, but one thing he's sure, that I'll never see them again. The person who's dying, he is also knowing that I will never see them again. Just imagine the condition. Just imagine what is he going through. Very painful. So physically, emotionally, death is really a painful thing. Person gets very scared. So, besides these 4 problems which we mentioned, then there are other problems which are, one is created by mind and body, right? Mind keeps creating trouble. So that is called adhyatmik. And then there is trouble by other living entities called adi bhautik. Like mosquitoes bite you, right? For what? You haven't done anything. They just come and bite you. Or sometime a dog will come and bite you on the street for no reason. It's adi. And then, as someone was mentioning, this is called adi daivik. Earthquakes, tsunamis. These are real problems. These are adi daivik, natural disturbances. So we have to go through all this. Now just imagine, we have material advancement. So does the material advancement provide us with a solution to the real problems? What are the real problems? We just heard. Birth, old age, disease, death, and then adhyatmik, adi bhautik, adi daivik. So do they provide? Yes, it does, but only temporary, right? With the disease, it provides some relief, but it is temporary. It's not a permanent relief, right? So there is no permanent solution of it. Now, I'll just read this out. Very nice sentences. I like these sentences. So I would request you to pay attention to these sentences. I'm just reading it out because if I go on explaining, it will take a lot of time. The paradox of our time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter tempers, wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy it less, isn't it? If now we have bigger houses and smaller families. Earlier we had smaller houses but bigger families. In a house 20 people will be staying, right? Now even if it is 4, there is problem, isn't it? So we have bigger houses and smaller families. More conveniences but less time. So many conveniences are coming up. We are creating this facility, that facility, but still if you ask people, they said we don't have time. Said, please come to temple, we don't have time. Come for Bhagavad Gita crash course, we don't have time. Isn't it? So people don't have time. So what is the point in creating facilities? What is the point in creating comforts if you don't have time? We have more degrees but less sense. We have more knowledge but less judgment. We have more experts but less solution. Nowadays we have experts for everything. Smaller thing, experts for this, experts for that. But still we don't have any solutions. We have more medicines but less wellness. We have multiplied our possessions but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We have learned how to make a living but not a life. We have added years to life, not life 2 years. We have been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor, which is very common in big cities, right? You stay in the same building for 20 years and you don't even know who your neighbors are. You hardly know, you hardly go to their houses, isn't it? So this is what is happening. We have conquered outer space, but not inner space. This is this problem. We have, sorry, we went, okay. Did we read that one? Okay. We have conquered outer space, but not inner space. We have cleaned up the air, but polluted the soul. We have split the atom, but not our prejudice. We have higher incomes, but lower morals. We have become long on quantity, but short on quality. The last one, I'll read. These are the times of tall men and short character, steep profits and shallow relationships. These are the times of world peace, but domestic warfare. More leisure, but less fun. More kinds of food, but less nutrition. These are days of 2 incomes, but more divorce. Of fancier houses, but broken homes. It's a time when there is much in the show window and nothing in the stockroom. This is our life, isn't it? This is going on in the present scenario. And that is why it is very important for us to understand Bhagavad Gita, to come out of all this situation. And how to understand Bhagavad Gita, we will just do it. Yeah. First of all, when we read Bhagavad Gita or when we are trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, we should not twist the meaning to suit our purpose. Twisting the meaning means, for example, people say, Mahabharat, there was a war, battle between 5 Pandavas and Kauravas. So Pandavas are our senses, Kauravas are our desire, and battlefield is our body. That's all. So that means it never happened. So this is just twisting the meaning or any other thing. So we should not twist. We should accept it as it is. As Krishna wants us to understand. Do not give your own interpretation. Do not put your own brain. Krishna has enough. So he doesn't need your intelligence to explain Bhagavad Gita. Also we should accept it as Song of God. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavat means God. Gita means song. Geet. So Bhagavad Gita is Song of God. That means if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, theoretically at least accept Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Bhagavad Gita has to be understood in a spirit of devotion. If you are not understanding it in a spirit of devotion and in association of devotees, it is like trying to taste the honey by leaking the bottle from outside. You will never understand what is the taste. So you have to be in association of devotees and in a spirit of devotion, then you can understand. That's how you can understand Bhagavad Gita. Now we will go on who can understand. There are 2 topics which we are going to discuss. Who can understand and who can explain Bhagavad Gita. So which is very important, and then after that we will stop for a while and maybe tomorrow we will continue. So who can understand Bhagavad Gita? That means the qualification of a person, disciple who wants to understand. The first qualification is he should be inquisitive. If you don't have that mood of inquiry, you cannot be a disciple. You cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. And that is the reason the very first word, anyone knows what is the first word of Bhagavad Gita? How does Bhagavad Gita start? The first word? No. It's Dhritarashtra. Right? Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra. Now Bhagavad Gita is speaking about dharma. But it begins with a person's name who is adharmi. Isn't it? Dhritarashtra, he was not a dharmic person. He was not a religious person. In fact, he was opposing the devotees, he was opposing the Lord, right? He was on the wrong side. He wanted the kingdom so much so that in spite of knowing that in this battlefield my all 100 sons are going to die, he did not stop the battlefield. He did not stop the war. There is a description in Mahabharata that before the war began, Vyasadeva came to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was blind. So Vyasadeva asked Dhritarashtra that now the battle is going to take place. Do you want eyes? I can provide you. You will be able to see. So Dhritarashtra had a choice. He could have said, yes, I would like to see. But he was very intelligent. So he asked Vyasadeva, please tell me, you are Trikalagya. You know what is going to happen in future. Please tell me, what will be the result of this battle? Vyasadeva said, all your sons are going to die. Hearing this, Dhritarashtra said, I don't want eyes. I haven't seen them alive. I cannot see their dead bodies. So that means he very well knew before the battle that all his sons are going to die. Still he did not stop the war. That was his attachment to the throne. That was his attachment to the nation or to the kingdom. That is why he is called Dhritarashtra. Rashtra means kingdom and Dhrita means one who is holding on to it very strongly. Dhritarashtra. He did not stop because he thought that suppose my sons do not die, and even if my sons die, then Pandu Putras, this Yudhishthira and all, they are not going to tell me to give up the kingdom. I'll still be the king. So this is Dhritarashtra. So the Bhagavad Gita starts with his name. Why? Because he had this inquisitive mood. He was inquiring. What happened? Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta, Yutsava, all of them has assembled. What are they doing? So to show that if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita, you should be inquisitive. Dhritarashtra's name appears. So the first quality of a person who wants to understand Bhagavad Gita is he should be inquisitive. But just being inquisitive is not enough. You should approach a proper person. He must approach a guru. We are going to discuss very soon the qualities of the guru also. That means approaching a guru means not anyone and everyone. You cannot go to the panwala and discuss Bhagavad Gita with him, right? Eating pan and asking, okay, how much tuna was there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? No need, right? So you should approach a proper person. So he must approach a guru. Bhagavad Gita cannot be understood by our own endeavor. It can be understood when we approach a guru. And we should be very inquisitive. This is the instructions of the Shastras. In Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. That if you want to know the truth, you go to those who have seen the truth. Tattvadarshinaha. And they will impart knowledge unto you. So the person who wants to understand Bhagavad Gita should definitely go to a person who has understood or who is living Bhagavad Gita. Right? Can I take 5 minutes more and explain this one point and stop? Is it okay? Or are you getting late? Okay, just 5 minutes more. I'll explain this point and then we will continue tomorrow further on this. From whom to understand Bhagavad Gita? That means the qualification of a guru. I just mentioned that we must approach a guru. So who is a guru? Before we understand who is a guru, we should know who is a fake guru, isn't it? Now fake gurus are those who are giving some secret mantras and making some false promises for some, okay, you give me 10,000 rupees, I'll make you God. or you do this, I'll give you a mantra, you'll be very happy. So giving secret mantras and making false promises is the duty or is the work of fake gurus. They allow their students to disregard all the Vedic regulative austerities. Like they say that don't worry, you don't have to follow anything, you don't have to do anything. Just give me money, that's all. You are okay. You will become God, you will become spiritual, you will get self-realization, etc. And they say no need to follow scriptures, no need to follow Veda, no need to do any austerity. Eat, drink, whatever you want to do. I met a person, I'll tell you, I was going in taxi, so the taxi driver, I have a habit when I go, I start talking. So I started talking and he looked at me, so he thought I'm a spiritual person. So he said, हमने भी दीक्षा लिया है. He said, I have also taken initiation. I said, wow, very nice. He said, today, it was a Wednesday or Thursday maybe. So he said, today, I don't eat non-veg, I don't drink, I don't comb my hair, I don't put oil in my hair, and some other things he said. It was years back, so I don't remember. I said, why? Why today? He said, because today I got initiated. Today I took Diksha, so today I won't take. I said, all other days? He said, all other days, whatever you want, you do. That's not a problem. So only because today you got Diksha, you don't eat it, otherwise whatever you want to do. So these are fake gurus. They teach yoga as simple gymnastic exertion, I was mentioning in the beginning, and not as a means of connecting one to God. Yoga, the word yoga means connecting to God. It comes from a root word called yuj. Yuj means to connect, to link. But if you're not linking to God, what is the meaning of yoga? Just teaching some exercises. So these are the gurus. That they maintain that the purpose of yoga is material well-being. Many times you see the boards, yoga for this, yoga for that, material well-being. No. And they defy the Vedas. Ultimately you will find, I don't know how many of you have met such person who declare that I am God, you are God, everyone is God. Have you met any God by chance? Walking on the street somewhere? No? In local train or somewhere somebody declared I am God? There are so many people who claim themselves to be God. That's why a very important topic we will be discussing, that who is God. When we are discussing before that, like, whether God exists or no. In that we are going to discuss. At present also, there are 2 or 3 Kalkis. The Shastra says that Kalki avatar is going to come at the end of Kali Yuga, not now. But presently they have come. I remember many years back there was Kumbh Mela. And in Kumbh Mela, there was a big camp of Kalki avatar. So one of our devotees, he didn't like it. So he went there and this person was speaking. So after he spoke and he asked him, sir, I have a question. He said, what? He said, as per Shastras, you were supposed to come at the end of Kali Yuga. How did you come so early? And he said, I couldn't see the misery of my devotees, so I came before only. It's all foolishness. So we are going to discuss that in detail. Who is an avatara? So person who claims himself that I am God, you are God, being an ordinary person, right? There are so many people who claim themselves to be God. And if they have any problem, they need a medical assistance, right? We had God, one God, now he's not there. He was claiming himself to be God. And when he was going, behind the medically equipped van used to come. Ambulance. He was going with ambulance. Anything happens to God, so take him to the hospital. If God cannot save himself, what will he save us? Right? If he needs medical equipped van, then what is the point? So we are going to discuss that. So these are all fake gurus. Now we'll discuss about qualifications of the guru. The first qualification is that he should have heard about the absolute truth in disciplic succession. Disciplic succession means Krishna gives knowledge to his devotee and then his devotee gives to his disciple and his disciple, like this, the knowledge comes down in succession. So he should have heard. That means a guru means one who has heard already in proper disciplic succession. The second thing is he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures. He should know the essence of the scriptures, and he should be beyond caste and creed. Bhagavad Gita says, so he should be beyond all this caste and creed. He should see everyone equally. Like Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, he did not discriminate that these are Americans, these are not Hindus. He gave everyone the same knowledge, and he made everyone as devotees. So he should see everyone equally. And also he should impart spiritual knowledge, not mundane knowledge. He bestows spiritual knowledge, not the material benefit. That means it's not that if you go to the Guru, your factory is not working, it will start working. You go to the Guru, you'll get a lot of money. What is the point? The Guru is one who takes you to God. Guru is not the one who takes you away from God. So that is the real Guru. And of course, sorry, I'm not doing it. And the Guru gives spiritual knowledge, and Guru's general behavior is that he should be decorated with all saintly qualities, and he should preach by his own example.
For more such devotional programs, please watch Hare Krishna television. To get this channel, please contact your cable or DTH operator. For more information, please call 8767 845 845.